Thank you for joining us at the Roundtable.
Brought to you by Community Education Arts, a nonprofit organization based in Noblesville, Indiana.
I'm Alice Cavanis-Gober, president of CEArts.
And I'm Sarah E. Morin, secretary of CEArts. Let's sit down at the Roundtable. I'd like to remind you a little bit about our NICE project. Our NICE project is always based upon classic literature. There's always going to be unavoidable issues that come with the study of literature, with intolerance, prejudice, discrimination, racism, gender bias, domestic abuse, as well as problematic social inequalities due to the class systems and patriarchal dominance. Our project's goals are to breathe new life into the classics by encouraging critical thinking, in-depth discussions of themes and issues in the works selected, and to invite you to experiment with your creativity. With these goals in mind, we'll do our best to discuss any unpleasant and discomforting aspects of our book choices, with understanding the cultural context of the times in which they were written and the periods in which the stories are set, and a consciousness of how these books relate to today. The books we're studying this year are Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, Dracula by Bram Stoker, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte.
To further our little recap a little bit, we've already discussed racism, prejudice, intolerance, and discrimination in all four of our selected books, and we've looked at structure and its impact in each book.
And also, the marriages were fascinating to read, but
marriages
they were not exemplars of, happy, functional, idealized relationships. We did have a lot of more useful talk about gender roles, economic roles, sexual politics than true human connection in a lot of those marriages.
Right. I think really if you look at all the marriages from Scarlett's parents to Scarlett to anybody she knows, I mean any other couples that cross our path in this book, the only one that is even remotely about love is Ashley and Melanie's marriage. Mm-hmm. And even that is kind of lopsided. I mean, Melanie truly loves Ashley in romantic and all those ways that are normal for a woman in that time period. Ashley, he's lusting after Scarlett on the side all the time. So there are elements of their marriage that aren't even as solid as one might think. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about, the movie and they run across the field to each other when he gets, after the war's over, and it's so romantic. Yeah, it is. And that scene is in the book. Yeah. But, the truth of the matter is, even their highly romanticized marriage isn't perfect, isn't, necessarily equal in terms of how they see each other and everything. So yeah, the marriages in this book, some of that stuff was so hard to deal with. I mean, we did a lot of analysis on the abusive elements within some of these marriages, and we didn't like that. But again, important to the storytelling, just didn't like it. It was just uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right. Great. Shall we go into content we got to?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's do a little bit of some of the content that we didn't quite get to fully in our behind the scenes discussions. Do you want to start us off with class structure and how some of our characters or situations maybe either adhered to or challenged the existing class structure in their time and place? Because all four books are, kind of different time and place, except Little Women and Gone with the Wind are kind of set in the same time period.
Right. I'm actually going to let you start this off here.
Well, first of all, I would say that all of our selected books depict how, for women mostly, and we touched on this a minute ago, marriage can either adhere to or challenge social structure. We had some good matches, we had some bad matches, and I do feel like we went into a lot of depth on that, but let's just briefly recap. Scarlett's marriages. Okay, her first marriage to Charles, there's not really much to say about that marriage. It's an example of an immature and stupid reason for a woman to get married, and basically it results in an unwanted and unloved child, which is very sad. And that child doesn't even really play much of a part in the movie, let alone, but he has more of a part in the book, I think. The second marriage with Frank gives in a lot to Scarlett, as she is, as kind of she's the boss in the marriage, but it costs him his life, basically. And so the overall kind of lesson you could take away from that marriage is don't give women power, I mean, it's, that's kind of a humorous, darkly humorous way of looking at it, but that is not an ideal marriage, and it certainly starts for a lot of bad reasons, and it ends with his death. I mean, for a lot of bad reasons. And then Scarlett's third and final marriage, well, we assume her final marriage in the book, to Rhett. Rhett always attempts some sort of control over Scarlett. He usually does it through his kind of barbed humor. He's trying to, get her to react or see something his way in a kind of a humorous way. But he also seems genuinely torn in that he wants Scarlett to feel protected and indulged by him. And so their marriage is very strange in some ways. And we did talk about that a lot in past episodes, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details on that. I'll just tell everybody, hey, go back and listen to our past episodes. In Jane Eyre, my recap for that is that Jane and marriage, to me, Jane's notions of marriage and the ideas of marriage in the book are kind of, particularly from Jane's point of view, tied to equality and spirituality. And I would say in Little Women, we have more examples of marriage than in Jane Eyre. Jo and marriage, I think that's tied to romantic love, kind of resembles Alcott's real life infatuations with older literary men that she knew through her father. I would say, and I ask you, do you think it's also from Jo's point of view kind of tied to mutual respect?
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think she respects Laurie, who originally, asked her to marry him, as much as she actually respects Professor Bear, who she does.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she and Laurie are more buds.
Yeah, exactly. And then Amy and Laurie's marriage evolves from friendship to romantic love and results in the fairly equal kind of roles of supporting each other within the marriage. Actually, kind of a slightly more progressive marriage for that time period than you might expect, compared to, say, for example, Meg and John. Their marriage absolutely adheres to traditional cultural norms of marriage roles for the man and the wife, the man and the woman, husband and wife. We didn't really, I don't really have much of a recap about in Dracula about marriage, because the only marriage I can really think of is Jonathan and Mina, and their marriage is so bizarre. They get married at his bedside when he's recovering from a mental and physical breakdown. I mean, it starts weirdly, it progresses weirdly. Sometimes Mina is a very strong character, and sometimes she's relegated to the background. It's just bizarre. But Dracula stands out in our 4 books on all levels, because Dracula is a supernatural being, not a human. And so everything we talk about is like, well, Dracula's really a monster, so it's kind of hard to put him into the mix of everything.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about marriage and Dracula is the first appearance that Lucy Ressenra has, where she's writing Mina about, hey, I got proposed to by 3 guys today, and why can't I just have them all? And the idea that she is at least slightly more sexually progressive,
Yes.
or at least she'd like to be, but she's also kind of punished for it.
Yeah, she is, definitely. Again, the kind of subtext lessons, I don't even know if they're subtext, the lessons of some of these characters' outcomes in all these books are really, whew, yow.
Join us next time as we continue our recap discussion for the 6th Annual NICE Project. This has been At the Round Table with Alice
And Sarah E.
of Community Education Arts.
Our nonprofit organization is based in Noblesville, Indiana. You can find us online at CEArts.org. We'd like to thank James Weston for writing our intro music and for his technical savvy.
Join us next time
At the Round Table.